Follow me. Welcome to the Dungeon of Drax. Choose your warrior.
Hello and welcome to a look at Barbarian 2, Dungeon of Drax, for the Amiga, a game that was released by Palace. There's also a Commodore 64 version of this game, but for variety's sake, I'm going to be covering the Amiga version. Barbarian 2 is a direct continuation of the first game, Barbarian the Ultimate Warrior. And of course, in the first game, you played a young warrior who had to fight off against various enemy fighters in Mortal Kombat in order to reach the castle of Drax and hit him a few times and free Princess Mariana in the process. Drax, after that beating he took, decides to go hiding in his dungeon. And the only capable fighters or only fighters capable of potentially stopping Drax are the young warrior, and turns out the princess is quite an accomplished swordswoman, apparently. So they go in hot pursuit of Drax. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Actually, I know I'm not wrong. The last fight in Barbarian the Ultimate Warrior took place in Drax's castle. His dungeon is underneath the castle. Why the two characters start in the wasteland level, I have no idea. Maybe Drax teleported them away or something, I have no clue. You make up your own reason for why you start in the wasteland level. But that is where you start in the wasteland level, and you have to navigate that and two other levels before you can gain access to the dungeon level, the Dungeon of Drax, to face off against Drax himself and be the hero and all that stuff. You have to pick up certain items on each level. You can exit the level without having the items gathered, but you will get a warning via the level indicator in the bottom right side of the screen will blink if you are missing some of the objects, and there are 2 objects per level up until the 4th level, and they all have some sort of protection effect against things you will encounter on the last level. So if you don't have those available, then you are probably going to be absolutely screwed in the most unpleasant of ways. And due to that, you have to navigate the levels, locating the items and finding the exit, all at the same time, even fighting monsters who are continuously trying to block your way forward. The fighting in this game is probably going to be an action adventure kind of thing. It's definitely not a fighting game, even though you would assume that, because of course it being a continuation to one of the best 1 versus 1 fighting games made at that time at least, that the fighting would take high priority, but unfortunately it doesn't. The fighting in this game feels like an afterthought more so than anything. The levels that you navigate are just a bunch of screens which are connected to each other and not in logical ways. A personal favorite is walking off the screen to the right and find yourself facing left on the screen connected to it, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There's a compass thing in the shape of the sword thing disc in the middle of the screen, but it doesn't actually do anything to help you not get lost. And if you, for some bizarre reason, should decide to play this game, you will definitely want to map the connection between the rooms in order to not get horribly lost. Because the game is not doing anything to prevent you from getting lost. Let's do technical stuff and be done with it. Graphics-wise, this game looks very close to the Commodore 64 version, and while this kind of graphics would be perfectly acceptable on the Commodore 64, I have high expectations on the Amiga, and as such, I'm not particularly impressed. The animation quality is by and large very decent, but most of the graphics just looks extremely bare-boned, and it's supposed to be atmospheric, but I think it fails big time in that direction, and most monsters look about as scary as a teddy bear. Just switching to the female warrior to make sure everyone's represented, and to of course have some video to talk over. Suffice to say, graphics-wise, I'm not particularly impressed. It's not ugly horrible, but it's definitely nowhere near special or spectacular. When it comes to the sound, the only music there is on the title screen, and it is very enjoyable, but it's also very short, so there's not an awful lot to enjoy. Sound effects wise, it's mainly grunts and that kind of stuff, and they serve their purpose, but they are not memorable in any particular way. Speech. The speech in the game is of a high quality, and it's nice to listen to, but there's not an awful lot of it, so there's not an awful lot of it to enjoy. The controls, they're responsive as such, but because of course this is not a fighting game. Like the first game, not most, but some of the things that you use to fight, some of the controls that you used to fight with in the first game has been assigned to other functions. You have 4 attacks, and it doesn't feel particularly interesting. The worst part is that someone decided that in order to change spacing, you should pull down the joystick without the fire button pressed, and that can lead to some interesting mishaps from time to time. The gameplay: run through screens, look for items, and fight off against monsters which respawn every 5 seconds, just about. Trying to jump over pits, trying to jump over lava, trying to avoid falling asleep fighting the same monster for the 17th time because another monster knocked you back through a screen you just been to, and the monster you killed before exiting that screen has respawned, so now you have to fight that in order to get back to the screen to fight the other monster that was again pushing you back. And navigating the levels is not interesting because they're confusing. Fighting the monsters is not interesting because the fighting feels boring, especially compared to the first game. And overall, what gameplay there is about as exciting as reading a book full of blank pages. Yeah. Could have been, should have been, but wasn't. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time. Bye bye for now.